So you have a promising technical trade that you want to make, but you're not sure when to enter, and/or you're not sure when to get big in the trade. In this video, we help you with that. Hi, I'm Mike Bellafiore, co-founder of S&B Capital, and we're a proprietary trading firm located in Midtown Manhattan. And I'm also the author of the trading classic, One Good Trade and the Playbook. In this video, see how we use tape reading to enter a promising technical trade with size. And we do all of this while controlling and limiting our risk. Let's get to work on sharing these important trading lessons so you can grow your trading account.
Today we'll be doing the reading the tape for a trade in PLTR from 12/8, so just a couple days ago. This trade will take place on this top right chart and top right level 2. Sam put together this really great technical drawing here on why we were really looking at PLTR this morning. Sam, do you want to talk a little on this?
Yeah, so the previous day you can see PLTR had a very strong move, about 20% move from the opening to the high of the day. And then you can see in the after hours and pre-market a few levels really started to develop. And this is currently right before the open of the trade we wanted to take. So a few levels I was watching were 29, which was the previous day's high, and also a whole number, as well as this 30.45, which was really ended up being the main level for the day. And you can see this is a really key inflection point with multiple swing high failures. And then once we were able to regain it in the pre-market, we started to hold above that level. And then pre-market high is also a level that we all like to look at, and that pretty much correlated right with $31, also a whole number. So ideally on the long side, we would want price to blow past that pre-market high, as well as ultimately holding above that 30.40 level. And then on the short side, we'd want to see a failure at pre-market high, and then a retest and another failure at that after hours high, as well as that inflection point at 30.45. So we can run the tape and see how these different scenarios play out. And then it's really important just to watch how price reacts at this 30.40 to 30.46 range. It's really interesting on the tape.
Yeah, and to give a little bit more color on PLTR for anyone that doesn't know the little bit of history behind this, but it recently IPO'd Palantir Technologies, and they build and develop software platforms for the intelligence community in the United States. So it's been a pretty hot tech IPO since it came out, and as you can see, there's been a lot of both buyers and sellers with lots of shorts getting trapped as we make these new all-time highs, making it another attractive candidate for having elevated RVOL and maybe outsized moves to really capture great risk to reward opportunities.
Sam, fair to say that when thinking of technical analysis, that 30.45-ish area is a key technical resistance area that we can look at when we're making trades?
Yeah, exactly. This is the key level for the day. And you can just pretty much craft that bias just from looking at the chart. You can see all those little circles I have. You can see that this has definitely the battle level of the day. So when price opens and you go into real-time trading, you definitely want to put much more emphasis on price levels such as this 30.45 level, where you can see it's like just a big inflection point.
Okay, good. And just to speak to some of the newer people, so that means that we're going to be more interested in tape reading and reading the tape and what the tape looks like potentially around that 30.45-ish area. We're not just making trades normally. There are some instances where we do. There's some momentum trades that we do. There's some IPO trades that we do. When volatility is really high, there are some times when we do just trade off of the tape. But almost always, we're putting together trades. We're looking at technicals, we're looking at fundamentals that are important to us? Does it have a news catalyst? And we're using our tape reading skills together, and we're finding setups that match our playbook trades. Okay, so we're not just blindly looking at the tape. We're not just blindly looking at technical levels. We're not just blindly making trades off of the fundamentals. I mean, we all know that I am a little perplexed at the price right now of DoorDash, but you have to, it's not enough. And the market doesn't care that I'm perplexed that it's trading up at these levels. First of all, maybe I'm wrong. Second of all, this is people get the vote, and I'm one vote in the marketplace. And so we don't just get nakedly short just because we think DoorDash has got a lot to come in from the second day of its IPO trading. All right, so let's see what happens.
Great.
We know what happens, actually. We're giving an example of what we did on this day, and an example this is a perfect example of how we're going to use our reading the tape skills, our tape reading, with an important technical level.
Exactly. So reminder to be on the top right here, and we're watching this push into 3050 or 3045 that Sam had annotated on the other technical level. So we just know that's a really big inflection level. So we're watching kind of this dip and rip breakout and seeing if PLTR if it finds resistance at this 3045, 3050 area after breaking down through it. Because if it can stay below that level, that could be a potentially good sign of continued weakness as it tried to make a new all-time high, failed, and then got below that level. So now we're really seeing, will it hold below that level?
Hey Matt, do you want to pause it real quick so we can just give a little more context? So you can see how right after the open, how it's already traded. Pretty steep opening drive through that pre-market high in 31, but instant failure. So that's definitely the first signal for us to start building a short thesis. And then you can see super strong reaction down from 31.24 all the way below 29.50. And then this move right now is more so, I would say, short covering than actual true buying. So right now we're ideally just looking for places to start building a short position if we're not already involved. So that's just kind of the overall context for why we're looking at the short at this time.
If you want to learn 3 more real-world setups that our traders use, including the simple setup that we teach all of our new traders, and the setup that turned one of our traders into a 7-figure big money earner, check out the free webinar that we're currently running. Just go ahead and click the link that should be appearing now at the top right-hand corner of your screen. That will open up the free registration page in a new window, so don't worry, you won't lose this video. You can also visit tradingworkshop.com to register for this free intensive workshop. You're going to learn more in a couple of hours from this trading workshop than from years of online education.
Yeah, how slow the tape is on this up move is a nice indicator of potential weakness or continued downside because, like Sam said, it's not as much as true buying, but more shorts covering and people just resizing their positions. So we're coming up into this important 30-40 area, 30-45. You can see there's some offers stacked at 30-50, which never get hit.
And you can see how this is a pretty obvious change in the tape. This is the first point from this whole up move where we're starting to find a little bit of resistance on the tape. Before, we were just easily cruising through these different numbers. And now you can really see how this level is developing on the tape.
Exactly. For like the past 2 minutes, the bids had been constantly stepping up every 5-10 cents and finding a higher ground, but now we've seen these 30-50s never be able to get hit, and these 30-40s are really stalling, and we can't hold above there.
Yeah, and despite pretty strong on the bids there, pretty strong size, we're just taking it out super easily.
Can we go back to the last up move? 3 things. 1, as something's coming into, just stop for a second. 1, as we're coming into that key technical resistance area, we want to see how the stock goes up. So I want to see how the stock, what's the buying pattern into that resistance area. Are they repeatedly rebidding at 30.30? Are they repeatedly bidding at 30.35? Are they repeatedly bidding at 30.40? Are they repeatedly bidding at 30.45? And then do I notice that pattern shift? So that's number one. If I notice that pattern shift, I can use that as a way to enter. Secondly, let's go up and watch the offers at 30.50. Let's see if we notice anything about the offers at 30.50. What do we think about those offers at 30.50?
To me, that shows this is clearly a potential resistance level, both on the tape and also as we see on the technicals. And there's clearly a player there stacking size on that offer to try and hold the stock below that level.
Okay, so on the way up, we're watching the buying pattern. Two, Sam rightly points out that he's noticing some resistance on the offer. It's harder for the stock to go up. They're buying, but it's harder for them to get up. When they were buying at 45 cents, at other prices, the thing would be 75 cents by now. Not really getting up very much. All right, so we're noticing that on the tape. We know that this 30.45 is a technical resistance area from previous trading. We see that there's some stacked offers at 30.50. We should start to think about using that 30.50 as protection. We should start to think about initially building a position against this 30.50. And then lastly, we should look to see the buying pattern change. And if we can see the buying pattern change, then we can get really aggressive against this 30.50 level. We can use this as the see it moment to really get into an aggressive short. We can use this as an example to be very aggressive with the thesis that we've developed. So we think the stock's going to be weak because of the price action we noticed right on the open that Sam very, very astutely points out. Spot on. Big down move after a failure to hold above the technical resistance area. That's a technical failure. And so we're looking for that moment to lay into this thing, to be aggressive, to put on big size. And this is an example right here where we may be able to put on big size by using our tape reading skills for entry. We're not making this trade just based on tape reading. We're making a sizing decision. We're making an aggressiveness decision. We're making an entry decision based on our tape reading skills. And we're formulating this trade with a technical factor as well. Okay? But we're looking for those moments. We want to be big, we want to be aggressive, and this could be one of those moments.
Something else I want to touch on that you kind of pointed out with this 30-50 level as kind of pretty much where you're risking the trade off of. So you could approach this two different ways, I would say. You could just risk your whole position against 30-50, or you could size more aggressively and risk, let's say, 60-70% of your position against 60-50 lifting, and then ultimately risking that rest against high of day or that 31 level. So you could be able to still have a little bit of size on if this 30-50 lifts and then ends up re-stepping back down. And then you could also end up getting a lot more shares if kind of like what's happening now, if this 30-50 is the true level of the day.
Great. So I'll play it through one more time so we can see these 30-50s never really decrement. They get refreshed a little and we pull back away from the level.
Yeah, I want to see can 30.45 hold the bid.
Here's 45. Can't really hold, and we know that's
Can't really hold the bid, right?
Yep. And then it pulls back 10 cents, which isn't really something we've seen too recently on this whole up move.
Can it hold the bid? Yeah. That's what I'm looking at. Can't hold the bid.
Really good sign when you see a bunch of size popping on the bid and it just gets taken out almost instantly as well.
It can't hold the bid, and you're looking for that change in pattern, and the down move's different than it had been. You noticed the first time it couldn't hold 45 cents, moved down a little bit. Second time it couldn't hold 45 cents, moved down a little bit less. Third time it couldn't hold the bid at 45 cents. It goes down differently. And this is where you can start to make a trade decision as to whether or not you want to go for it. Those are the moments, and that's why you go back and you watch the tape. You look for those nuances where the buying pattern changes. It just can't hold that 45-cent bid, and you ask yourself, how do I get really aggressive? Where do I get really aggressive against? But perfect example right here of being able to be big, using your tape reading skills, going for it, being in a trade you want to be in, being in a stock you want to be in, being in the direction you want to be in, and being able to risk very little and put yourself in a really good position to make a big trade.
Exactly. And we have a quick picture to just show how this trade played out. You can see this indication here is the clean rejection level we had at the previous all-time highs at 30.45. This was the area we watched on the tape that clearly held. And then from the top of that move to the bottom of the day was about a 12% move. So you could have been sized up really aggressively in a trade like that to make a full ATR on a stock in an hour.
If you wanted to add to your position, you can see this 29.80 level also became a pretty clear resistance on the tape, as well as almost identical price action on the retest of that level. So you can almost take an identical trade as the one you took for your first entry for a re-add for like continuation to low of day.
Exactly. And it'd be easier to notice this in real time because we had this information of how it traded earlier. So just sticking with the stock and using that information you've gained as an edge is definitely important to make some better trades.
All right, great. Super good example of how to use your tape reading skills for entry and how to use your tape reading skills to be big in a really good trade, and be able to do it with minimal risk. So great job teeing this up. We were making this trade. I know I made this trade in real time. Appreciate you guys teeing this up. I thought it was a really good teaching point. And then, this is the idea. You go back and you watch the key moments, the key inflection points on the tape, and you notice those little nuances, and you get better at your tape reading skills so that when a similar setup like this comes again, you will trade it with a little bit more size, trade it with a little bit more conviction, trade it with a little bit more aggressiveness, know what you're doing a little bit more, and improve as a trader. And if you just keep doing that, you keep getting a little bit better, that compounds on top of each other. Obviously, you guys know there are very, very large traders in the desk that put on huge size in trades like this. Swang chatted me about a trade in that GLSI. Is that the stock yesterday that was going crazy?
Yep.
That GLSI, he scalped that on the turn with huge size. He ended up walking into a much bigger trade than he thought. I don't think he intended to make as much money as he did, but he is an example of same principle, shorten the turn, using the tape reading skills to get in with a good entry, where these trades can become very, very significant P&L movers. Appreciate it, guys. Any questions?
So we have maybe two questions, it looks like. First one, what would happen if you take big size here and they take out the 30/50s quickly? Would you get out and then potentially re-enter again?
It depends on the trade you're making. I would, if you're shorting the turn, if you're waiting for the buying pattern to change and you're using that resistance area. If you're making that kind of trade, yep, you cover above 50 cents. If you're making more of a swing trade, as Sam mentioned, and you're sort of scaling into maybe the whole number, you are going to put on some size. You'll probably take a little bit off at 50 cents, but not all of it, and then watch what it does into the whole number. because it's a swing trade. So it depends on the trade you're making. Good question.
Great. And then just one more. What's generally a good stock float range to trade with if there's something in mind you think?
Good question. So these days, that changes. And a lot, we trade some of these stocks where the float is low, but the volume on the day is very high. I'd ask you to think about it more as to whether or not you can control your risk. And so you watch the way the stock's trading. Can you control your risk? Can you get out where you think you can get out? And that is really the better question to be asking these days with some of these low floats that are really in play that maybe you would decide not to touch based on its float on the open, but because there's just so much value on it, it makes it very tradable. Hey, go ahead and click our subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos that we're producing for you in the trading community. And please take the time to add your feedback in the comments section for what videos you'd like for us to produce next and what you found helpful from this video. From all of us at S&B, train and trade well.